Welcome back to Attacking Third. The W Champions Cup group stage is here. It's the inaugural edition of the tournament. It features 10 teams divided into 2 groups. Here's a look at the groups. Group A features reigning NWSL champions Gotham, Mexican giants Tigres and Monterrey, Costa Rica's Alajuelense, and Jamaican side Frasers. Group B is comprised of the NWSL San Diego Wave, Portland Thorns, Liga MX Femeniles, Club America, Panama's Santa Fe, and the Vancouver Whitecaps. The group stage starts August 20th through October 17th with 5 match days. The top 2 teams in each group advancing to the semifinals, with the final on May 25th, 2025. And this tournament will serve as qualification for future FIFA Women's Club World Cup, which is set for January and February of 2026. So we're looking into the future a little bit. For more on this, we welcome in the 4th member of our studio show, Sandra Herrera, to join us and chat about this. Sandra, I need to start with you. What's your vibe check for this Concacaf W Champions Cup?
I'm here for it. I think the vibes are as good as ever. It's giving a little bit of Gold Cup for me as well. There's something about an inaugural tournament that has bigger implications at play here that maybe kind of like give me those very, hyped kind of vibes. But I think once we saw that kind of preliminary round game happen with Vancouver and Alajuelense, I think it kind of just sort of set the tone like, okay, this has arrived, this is here, this is finally happening.
Right, Sandra, I feel the vamos, yeah meter is pretty high for this tournament. Yeah, let's run it. What can you tell us about the teams that aren't in the NWSL or Liga MX for our viewers that are unfamiliar?
Yeah, I think everyone's going to get a real up close and personal view of things happening very, very soon, because we got a couple of teams that are going to go head to head that maybe folks aren't too familiar with. We're talking about Alajuelense, which is an iconic club from Costa Rica. I think folks are going to maybe be familiar with a name on the roster, Noelia Bermudez, who's been a longtime goalkeeper for the Costa Rican national team. But I mean, there's other players on this group who are going to be familiar with. We're talking about Gold Cup, but Fabiola Villalobos was also part of that roster for Gold Cup, and now you're going to get to see these players kind of come together and perform for clubs. So keep an eye on those particular players, and all of these teams qualified in a certain capacity. So this is a group that is here competing in this Champions Cup because they went out and they won their 2023 Supercopa Union. So look out for them to kind of step up, reintroduce themselves a little bit for fans and neutrals who are watching that Gold Cup. And then, of course, there's going to go up against Frasers Whip, which I think everyone should maybe kind of tip their hat a little bit to, because I think that's a really great name. Shout out to Jamaica's representation in this one. I'm looking forward to these two kind of going head to head, because at the national team level, we've seen Costa Rica and Jamaica kind of go head to head and kind of have some special kind of bond there in terms of partnering with each other and wanting to have more fixtures against each other. So the fact that these two club teams are going to feature against each other as well, I think is kind of really special.
I like that you gave a shout out to Frasers Whip just because of their name. I agree. It's pretty awesome.
It is pretty cool.
Meanwhile, in the NWSL, 3 clubs qualified for this tournament, Darian. It was former champions Gotham FC, Shield winners San Diego, and then number 2 in the standings, finishing runner-up Portland Thorns. How do these 3 teams think they're going to fare in this tournament?
It'll be good for these 3 teams. You're bringing back your Olympic members, you've been able to strengthen your bench players, you're deep in your roster, give them lucrative minutes and playing time going into this tournament. I think it's going to be a really good test again to show that teams have been building more than just what their starting lineups are. I think that's a big critique we had on a lot of these teams, Portland being one of them, San Diego being another. Gotham, yes, but they have such a structured style of play that you don't see much drop off when, they have their typical starters in. I'm really looking forward to this challenge, though. I mean, the Summer Cup brought so much to these teams of asking different questions, the different tactics, the physicality is different. I think this tournament is going to offer something similar, and I really can't wait for it. I love this competition now that the NWSL is finally having, where we're seeing a fluctuation of different types of teams come in and kind of rock the boat and poke some holes in maybe where we think, oh yeah, NWSL is top tier, and then getting humbled a little bit. So I love it. I think these teams are going to do really well, though, and it's only going to make them better.
I think that it's definitely going to poke some holes, but for me, it's just in a different respect that I feel like we're adding a lot more competitions two NWSL teams than they're used to, and I feel like it's coming in a rapid succession. Remember, Summer Cup is going to pop back up in October too, and there's going to be a lot more to manage, especially for coaches. So I don't know. Do you guys think that that's going to be a bigger challenge than people anticipate with NWSL teams sort of multiple competitions? I know it models more the WSL and some of European Cups. They have European competitions on top of their regular season play. I think this is the first time we're seeing these demands being asked of NWSL teams.
Sandra,
I think it feels
too much.
I think it feels pretty like kind of fixture congestion is a real kind of into the front of everyone's mind here with this. I think, especially as we're coming out of like the Olympic Games, I wonder if like maybe there would be a similar vibe if we were talking about this specifically in 2025, where maybe you're just navigating the typical international windows for players who are balancing international duty for club and country. But I think with the Olympics, it just feels so heavy. So you're talking about an Olympic Games where players were missing out on stuff. We're talking about a crossover between NWSL and Liga MX Femenil with Summer Cup. And now we're talking about a Champions Cup. And I don't think that folks want to take this one too lightly just because of the things that are kind of high stakes in this one, the potential to compete for an eventual FIFA Club World Cup as well. So no one wants to go in this and not be competitive. And I don't think it's in the DNA of these players to go out there and just sort of look at this as just another cup competition as if it's nothing. So I do think that there's something to be said for the loaded match schedule, but I'm a little curious of how coaches are going to manage that as well. That's where it falls on the coaching staff to try to get some looks for other players. And I know we're have an eye on those NWSL clubs in particular. And I think when we're looking across the three of them that are going to be represented here, I think we're looking at the moves maybe that they made or lack of moves that they made over the offseason to maybe kind of address the benches that they have going into these type of competitions. I mean, I'm looking at Gotham, and I think that Jessica Silva signing is coming in at the perfect time for them. So I think that's going to come and kind of be on full display during this competition as well. How are coaches going to manage their rosters?
Well, I think it's also the beauty of having multiple tournaments within a typical NWSL season where we see the same team matchups. We see nearly the same starting lineup for most teams every single game. It's very hard to break into a roster, whereas these tournaments offer some fluctuation between who starts, who's benched, who gets rest that they need, where typically if the season were just going, you don't get that rest. You know, these players coming back for the Olympics, maybe they're not playing in these games that are coming up, and they're able to just use these roster positions where there's national team replacement players who have never gotten a professional look actually get to come and prove themselves in the league. And same for some of these teams that are playing. These are players oftentimes that are overlooked that have to go their hands are forced to go overseas and try out new teams. Well, now they're getting looks at NWSL, maybe clubs that they want to be in, and vice versa. So I think there's beauty in, yes, having so many games and a variety of tournaments during the season, but I do understand the congested schedule, and it really does come down to how managers and teams move players around and sign players that can fill in spots so that there isn't a drop-off and they can still remain competitive.
That's a good point. You know, I know we have a number of coaches in NWSL that specifically they don't like to refer to rotation as rotation because they mark it as whomever was the most ready, prepared, worked hard in training gets the spot. But Darian, do you think that will sort of expose in a weird way the way that they've prioritized or approached these tournaments in terms of who they field, how, and where?
It's another beauty of this tournament. Absolutely. Expose them all. No, I'm just playing.
We love mystery.
I see you.
We're here for improvement, and whatever that means, I'm always here for the players getting the time, the treatment, the opportunities that they deserve, because this would be nothing without them. So that is what I like about this. But ultimately, what I said before comes down to the managers and seeing how clubs really tried to set themselves up for success, or if they didn't. We'll see.
Sandra, when you look at this tournament as a whole and overall, how much weight are managers of these individual clubs going to put into this tournament to play their A team or play their best 11?
I think they'll absolutely look ahead at the opposition that's in front of them. I'm not going to sit here and act like all of these teams are on the same level. And I don't mean that as a slight. I just mean that there are different clubs representing at different levels at this point. We're talking about a preliminary stage matchup we just got to see where Vancouver punched their ticket through, and their penalty kick taker was a 17-year-old. So shout out Emily Wong for getting the first goal in the Champions Cup. But I don't know if there's a ton of 17-year-olds on maybe some of these NWSL rosters versus maybe some of the other tubs that we're going to see in this competition. Yes, there's a teenage wave, over the course of the last couple years for NWSL. But I think when you look across some of the rosters for this Championship Cup, some of them are very, very young. So that means they're going to be hungry and eager to compete. So I'm definitely looking at some different looks, and depending on the team that's going to be in front of them. I mean, we're talking about NWSL sides that are representing a league that are well into their next decade at this point. They're celebrating 12th year at this time. And I think the rosters going into this match for NWSL probably have a leg up in terms of the type of depth that they have coming into this competition.
For the Summer Cup, the Liga MX Femenil against NWSL summer tournament that we just concluded, we talked a lot about how it was really good exposure for so many of these Liga MX Femenil sides to come into the States, to play different competition, to grow their fan base. Christine, what kind of exposure are these other club teams from Jamaica, from Panama, from Costa Rica expecting to get in this tournament?
I think they'll get a massive bump. I think it's just obviously when you create a product, you hope that you reach larger audiences, and especially with WOSO, it's been a slow go. I think that they are absolutely fun squads to watch. I think I would rather see, my one criticism even of Summer Cup is I would like to see fewer NWSL teams playing other NWSL teams.
Yes.
I'd like to see them play more outwardly. It just gets redundant in a lot of ways, especially when you can look into a side like Alajuelense, who they play a different style. So watching the matchup against an NWSL side who are undeniably some of the most athletic, physical players, you get to see a little bit more tiki-taka, a little bit more fluid play, and just this juxtaposition of styles, just to get a better platform and an idea of what's going on in world football for women's soccer.
Yeah, punch some of those holes, right, Darian, in the plays and what's going to happen in the NWSL.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. You sure did. Well, match days with the group starts. It does run all the way through next year. We'll get the final in 2025, but let's make some early predictions. Who is going to win the whole thing, Sandra? I'm starting with you.
Listen, I think they're building up to something special this season, just like we saw them building up to something special last year. I'm going to go with Gotham in this one. I like the depth of this roster. I think the coaching staff has done a good job of rotating players in and out in light of injuries and having to manage player loads and things like that. So I'm going to go with Gotham.
Ooh, I like that. All right, Darian, you.
I'm also going to say Gotham, but I was hoping no one else was going to say it.
So was I. So now I have to rethink this because all three of us cannot go Gotham.
All right, I will go Portland. I think Rob Gale is doing amazing things with this side. We're seeing them build a lot on the Portland that we saw last year, and they're looking even better. They're bringing some diversity into the attack. They're not just relying on Sophia Smith anymore, and I assume that we're going to see more moves made by Portland, especially defensively, maybe in that outside back position to add a little bit more depth, more competition. And Jess Fleming, we're going to see her get into form. So I will go with Portland Thorns.
Christine?
I will go with not San Diego.
Yeah, there you go. So you still flip them.
I'm going to go with San Diego. I'm actually going to go with San Diego because Landon Donovan taking over this team, they're probably not going to make playoffs. It's going to be a tough run for them, but they need something to focus on, and they're going to focus on this, building blocks, get out of the group, run with it. For Gotham, they have too much happening. They're going to push for a shield. They're going to push for a championship, a back-to-back NWSL championship. They've also got the Summer Cup final in October. Gotham has too much going on, so I'm going to go San Diego. So, Christine, are you picking a team or you're just not San Diego?
Not San Diego. I'm certain it's not San Diego. If any, Gotham of the NWSL teams, yeah.
I'm saying, there you go, Chris. I love it.
Not a bad choice.
This has got to be this. They're going to be the representative of the Club World Cup. You got to keep that in perspective. Who do you want it to be?
Yeah, good competition. It all starts match day 1, August 20th. You can watch it right here on CBS. Sandra, thanks for joining us.